dengan Mikael Jasin di Suka-Suka Gue Kopi Channel Agent of Change Podcast. Kali ini kita akan ngomongnya pakai bahasa Inggris, jadi yang nggak bisa bahasa Inggris belajar dulu ya. We have a special guest, Elysia Tan.
Hi guys.
Recently crowned third World Brewers Championship.
Yeah.
World Brewers
Cup. Yeah, World Brewers Cup Championship. Because he does barista, so
shows how much I know. Third place WBRC 2022 in Melbourne. Where's the trophy?
Yeah, it's at home. Yeah, I'm done with the trophy for now, for today, for this week.
How are you?
Good. Well, it has been a pretty good week for us in Jakarta.
Yes.
Yeah, everyone is like super friendly. We were very overwhelmed with like the response, like so overwhelming that like the coffee is sold out within 2 days. Yeah, and like, well, this is actually something quite new. Like, everyone is asking for a signature.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of photos. Yeah, so
I think it's not just an Indo thing. I think that's like an Asian thing.
Yeah, in China. But in China, when back then, I think before COVID, we get that a lot as well. It's like, can I have your signature? Yeah, I think one of the very interesting experience or like weird experience that I ever did was like, because people like to take photos.
Yeah.
So usually the shows run for like a few days. So there was one somebody randomly came up to me with a keychain. I was just like, this is for you. I was just like, oh, what's this? It's for you. It's the photo that I took with him.
Oh, really?
Oh my god, that was like, it was really
That never happened to me.
That was a bit creepy, but that was one of the more memorable ones.
That's something,
Yeah.
So just for context, for people watching at home, this is shot a day after Jakarta Coffee Week. So that's why we're talking about coffee shows. It was 3 days of, I don't know the attendance numbers, do you know?
No, but
I know
crazy.
it's normally, last year I think was around 10,000 people. But I feel like this year's was a lot bigger than last year. I mean, space-wise, it was about the same, but I think attendance-wise, I could feel like
the traffic was overwhelming.
It was intense. And I think for the first time, we had a lot more international people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, you guys were there.
Yeah.
Cole, Juyon, and Charlie.
Yeah.
Cliff, JWC from Malaysia.
Yes.
I met somebody from Brunei yesterday. I don't know if they had a booth or not. So I think for the first time, especially after COVID, this was the first time where you had multiple, champions and present and past champions. So I think that's why it's nuts. Was this your first time in Jakarta?
Yes, it's actually my first time.
First time in Indo or just Jakarta?
First time in Jakarta. Indo, Batam. Because like you live in Singapore, Batam is definitely a place that you would check out when you were younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, like usually people do like school trips or like, short trips. We always go Batam. Yeah, so that's probably the only Indo that I've been to.
What's your impression of Jakarta?
Very loud.
Loud in terms of traffic or in
Yeah,
terms of
traffic. Yeah, so like the hotel that we stay in, like because I think we are really close to the road, so every night when we sleep, you can hear the traffic, and sometimes people just like the horn is like non-stop. But at the same time, everyone is so chill. Although it's so loud, people don't actually get frustrated or like agitated. It seems to be quite chill with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think once you get used to it, you just sort of accept it as a way of life, and I feel like people here honk it's more like as a gesture, like, oh hey, I'm here, I'm coming, or I'm behind you, I'm going to pass you.
Right.
So it's not like an aggressive honk, but it's more like, I'm here. I mean, obviously every now and then you have the aggressive ones. But other than that.
Well, I guess this is something that's interesting when it comes to traveling. Well, it's really a lot of cultural difference that I get to experience, because in Singapore, if you really do that kind of horn, it's more like when you are getting an angry driver coming through. So yeah, it's nice. I guess it's also the same when like I really enjoy going to a coffee festival, because you get to experience the different kind of cultural difference when it comes to coffee as well.
Preferences.
Like, yes, correct.
How does Jakarta and I guess Indonesia differ from Singapore?
Well, I guess like there are a few things that like I'm not sure. Is it maybe because of John? everyone was like going after Finca Nugo.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, you got Finca Nugo? They don't even taste, they just go for it. Or if like it comes to generic public, they generally look for geishas. That's like the first keyword that like I kind of get.
Yeah.
But if we talk about in terms of what kind of coffee they like, it feels like people like pretty heavier, medium to medium heavy body kind of coffee. But at the same time, coffee, they are like super floral.
So, we were interrupted by a dead battery. But we're back. So we were just talking about geisha and how the Indonesian market is very biased towards, not towards geisha, but they love geisha, they love the profile, and I think it's also because geisha has been around, at least in Indo. The wave started, I think, in around 2016 after Berliku.
Okay.
That's sort of, at least in Indonesia, that's sort of the one that triggered the trend. And that coupled with the volume of geisha that you can find in this market is what's helping the public's opinion about it. You know, like you have so many different, what I love about Panamanian farmers is because they sort of team up together and everybody's planting geisha, but they do it more because they want to promote the variety and also the country. You know, like there's not so much, at least from what I can see, there's not so much competition among themselves that, oh, I'm the only one who can have this geisha. You know what I mean? So I think that's definitely helping. I don't know if that's the case in Singapore or not.
Yeah, I guess for us, like, because Singapore is really small, and like the number of coffee drinkers, definitely we don't have so many people drinking coffee in Singapore, like as compared to Indonesia. Yeah. So our volume is nowhere close. But I think
variety though.
Yeah. And but in terms of variety, we actually have a lot, and I think that is also made possible because we kind of know each other. The community is really small, and when we buy coffees, people tend to buy together to save on shipping. Yeah. So I give one example, like if you want to buy coffee from Nordic Approach, right? You can actually get a few people to fill up maybe a pallet or two, and then you save on shipping, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of variety, I think nowadays it's getting a little bit more competitive. You really have to be a little bit more, I'm not sure if aggressive is the right word, but or maybe actively look for coffees so that you can actually stand out from the other people to be able to serve coffee of something different from other people, like different roasters. So like what happened maybe in the last 1 or 2 years is if everyone gets coffee from the same trader, we end up like you roast the coffee, I roast the same as that coffee, they come out more or less the same, and consumers start to like, you know, there's no product differentiation. So from a business standpoint, it becomes more challenging. So that's why for Homeground, we started to look a little bit more than just like out of our comfort zone.
Yeah, so, like this is a really good example. I asked you this, right? This is a Finca Lamula.
Yeah.
I hung out with Willem when I was there, Willem, but I didn't even know his farm was called Lamula. I know about La Cabra, but I didn't know about Lamula. So I think, that just goes to show, you know, like even if you're around in the industry, but there's still so much to explore, and you just need to know, I guess, where to look. Yeah. And try to find things that are still undiscovered or I don't know. This was the first time I saw it, so this is it's pretty cool to see. Yeah, but I guess for us, because our volume is not huge, and sometimes when you are new, it becomes challenging whereby there are occasions that you have to buy coffee without tasting them. It becomes a risk, right? But as soon as you are able to establish the relationship with the producers, it's actually a lot much better. So like the first time, I would say usually we are taking kind of like a small risk, buying in small volumes, but most of the time it is actually not a big issue. Like honestly, I don't think we have come across an issue whereby like the pre-shipment samples and the actual samples or like the actual shipment has any like big difference. Yeah, so I guess that's the good thing. Yeah. I think the good thing about buying from reputable producers is that you get what you taste during the pre-shipment samples. Right? I mean, obviously things will change a little bit here and there, but it would largely stay the same, right? Yes. Yeah. I guess one good, interesting example that I would have is buying coffee from Cafe Granja La Esperanza. Since Homeground was established in 2017, we have been buying coffee from them directly till the very today.
So, and there's this one coffee that we always buy, which is the Sera Azul Natural Geisha.
Yeah.
So over the years, actually there is slight difference in the coffee itself, but it's not so drastic that like you couldn't accept it. Yeah, but I guess because this is also agriculture, so it's normal.
Yeah, you know, like climate changes,
Yeah.
rainfall, all that sort of stuff. So, you mentioned Cafe Grana, and obviously you use that for the world, right?
Yes.
But before we get into that, how did you actually get started in coffee?
Well, for me, it started off with like I wanted to create a space for people to feel comfortable to have conversations. Like how, like, you know, people like to do their HT, that kind of thing. I wanted to create a space like this. So when I was like 16, I started to go out and do part-time. I wanted to learn, I thought that like cafe is actually a nice space that you can create a comfortable environment for people to open their, you know,
and
to
you
pour their
know
hearts.
this when you were 16-year-old?
That's what I wanted to do. But that
I didn't know anything.
but like, no, but back then I didn't know like coffee like was the thing that I wanted to do.
But you just wanted to gather people.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was what I wanted to do. And then after that, so I started to like, you know, do my own baking at home, and I went to do part-time. And then I came across, yes, and then I came across coffee. I was just like, of course, like many other people, like honestly, when I started in coffee, I don't really care about the taste. It's about the latte art. Yes. It's always the latte art. It is perfectly normal. Yeah. So from there on, I start to pick up. Then I realized that like, oh, there's this thing called drip coffee, and then like coffee can actually taste different. So that's how I slowly go like more and more into it. So yeah, that's how I kind of like got into coffee.
So how long have you been in the industry?
8 years, I think.
8 years.
8 years.
And then you started Homegrown 2017, 5 years ago. So only 3 years after you are in coffee, you started your own brand.
Yes. So like, well, it was a risk, or I can't say it's a risk, but a kind of calculated risk actually.
Yeah.
So I was still doing part-times at cafes, doing part-time baristas. At the same time, how Homegrown started is started off as an e-commerce store. So it's just purely e-commerce. We have a super small office where we keep our greens, and we're still cupping coffee on the floor because we don't have a table. Well, if you want photos, I definitely can send them to you. It was a very epic kind of like a,
on the floor.
Really small. And we started to do a lot of pop-ups, and we go to different coffee festivals, whether it's overseas or local, because the whole intention is to get to build the following first before having an actual physical store. Because in Singapore, physical store is going to cost you so much. So that's after like 6 to 7 months into the business, then we start up. We have the first physical store, which is in Juchet. That was in, I think, 2018.
And that was already a roastery, or it was still just a
okay, to be honest, we are so blessed. Our first roasting machine was a gift from our friend from Taiwan.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so like how the story actually comes about was we were asking him, because we know that he was about to sell away his second-hand machine, and we wanted to get that because previously we were just renting by per hour. And then he was like, you know what? Let me just give it to you. You just pay for the own shipment. He wants to do the good because he got a 12 kg Pro bag, and that was bought by his 3 regular customers. The deal was from the 3 customers was like they want to have a lifetime of like his coffee, and to him it was like, okay, why not? A 12 kg Pro bag, right? And he wanted to do the good, and he gave us the
paying it forward.
Yes. Yeah. So we were very, very lucky. Yeah.
That's very nice. So that was 2018.
Yes.
And then is that around the same time that you started competing, or you competed before that?
Before that, 2017 was my first. That was the first. Brewers? Yes, I've only done Brewers so far. Like it was just about having fun, you know. Because naturally I'm a little bit more competitive by nature, so I just wanted to see how it's like. And on personal preference wise, I like filter over espresso. So which is why I chose to do Brewers. So it's the same. Well, then in 2018, I was like, okay, now that I know how to play the game better, I want to win it, of course. But I was being an idiot. I got disqualified. Right.
You told me this story before, but remind me how you got disqualified.
Okay, so for Brewers, there's actually 2 different sessions. You have your open service, which is your 10 minutes presentation. And then another one is what we call the compulsory service, where you'll be given a mystery coffee So there is a minimum requirement of serving, of course, because you have to make sure that the judges have enough coffee to assess. So it was minimum 120 ml. All right. But then the cup that was given to me was 150 ml. I still remember it's a Lavera mixed latte cup. Okay, I will never forget. The color of the cup is green. Okay, I will never forget. Right? So because I know if I were to pour to the brim, it's going to make it really hard for the runners to carry, and I don't want to make their life difficult. So I kind of, so I kind of like under pour a little bit, and I totally forgot about the rule. And just when I walked out, I'm like, shit, I think I probably got myself disqualified. Then I went to Google and like trying to find the cup model and everything to check like, oh, if it's 150 ml, like how far are you away? How many cm you need? And that very moment, I already know that like I got disqualified. But I prepared quite I think like 3-4 months for the competition. And then I went home, I started crying, like non-stop. Then I was like, it was my next day, it's my open service. So I actually didn't want to do it because I was like, what's the point? Because I'm not going to make it anyway. But Ho Ming, who is also my roaster, he encouraged me that he said, no, you should still do it because then you will know how well you can do at your open service. In fact, you should give your very best. So I took his advice, I went for it, and I actually did very well for my open. And with this very, very painful mistake, of course, I went to 2019 for Brewers Cup again, and thankfully, I made it. So yeah, that's how it happened.
So you actually won in 2019?
Yeah, I went Boston.
Because you went to Boston?
Yeah, I went Boston. I was in Boston.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, we were on two different sides.
Yeah, so, Boston was very far apart, huh?
Yeah. It was like
I remember even with the Indonesian competitor at the time, Fakri, I only saw his performance. But during that entire week, because I was also competing, I didn't get to see anything, you know. Like I think Melbourne was a little bit smaller. You still kind of
get to like
you get to go around and see the barista end and you see the brewers end, but Boston was actually wasn't even that far. But
but I mean you're competing, like you wouldn't have the energy to
So it was your first Worlds, right?
It was my first Worlds.
Yeah, it was my first Worlds. So and then how did you do on that one?
Well, I came in 12th. Yeah, and well, like a lot of people actually ask me like how did I come out with my routine this year in 2022? Actually, it was because of Boston. So in Singapore, it's always humid. The weather, it's always the same. It's just like whether it rain or shine, that's all, right? So I never thought that like coffee would actually change because of the environment. Yeah, so when we went Boston, yes, so cold and so dry, and like day and night the humidity kind of like changes quite. It fluctuates, and we were roasting in the Airbnb. So like in Singapore, there's no smoke alarm in your house. It's very normal, but in US it's a thing. So during the night time when we were roasting on the Ikawa, we kind of set off the alarm. We were like, oh shit, what the fuck is going on? Is the fire engine gonna come or something? And then we realized, and then we start to see smoke from the Ikawa. But it was the same exact roast profile, but why is it so different? And of course, being the first time and like we really want to nail it, we will also bring day till night. And we visually realized that like the grind size is actually very different.
During the day and...
Yeah, because we were actually using additing.
Right.
And then we can see just with our naked eye that like the grind size is really different.
On the same number.
Yeah, and we start to question like, is there something wrong with us, the machine, or what is it? And then the Ikawa thing kind of like happened, and we start to think that, oh, is it because of the atmosphere? Yeah, and because we visit a few coffee shops, we realized that like some of their roasts were kind of on the darker side, but when you drink it, you don't feel that it's a dark roast. So we start to question, oh, is it really the environment? And that's how got us into this particular topic and bring us to 2022.
Because you did something to sort of deal with the environment, right?
Yeah.
So for people who've been living under the rock and haven't seen the performance, do you mind going through?
Yeah, of course.
I guess what you learned in Boston and what you did, and then the changes that you made for Melbourne.
Well, so like I say, Singapore was always very stable and constant. And knowing we were going to Melbourne already, we actually looked into the weather forecast and etc. to check like how is it like. And we know that it's going to be super dry. And when you are put in a very dry environment, you realize you actually can't pick up too much of, you're not as sensitive as you would be in a more humid environment. So we know that that will definitely affect how the judges perceive the coffee. So with that in mind, because I can't change the whole humidity in the expo, what I did was I have this, I brew my coffee into a server and I pour a bowl of hot water and I put it over the server itself. And with these, it actually helps to build up the moisture content and more water vapor within the server. And that actually helps to hold more aromatic volatile and finally achieve the increase in perception of the aromatics. Yeah.
Did it just change the aromatics or also the flavor?
Yes, it did. So we actually did a very interesting experiment. We tried hot water, we tried cold water, we tried without. They actually taste different. So what initially the routine was, we wanted to do is to serve to assess the aroma first, bring it back, I put a hot bowl of water, and then you assess again to experience the transit, because it actually it's going to smell really different.
Can you do that?
You can, but
rule-wise?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, but I don't have enough time, so I didn't do it. So So yeah.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, no, it was very interesting because at the same year, at least for Melbourne, there were two narratives, right? You had Sasha and the Golden Balls, and I feel like him being disqualified, well, eventually revoked, but initially disqualified, it sort of helped him and us sell the product.
Paragon, yeah, I know.
Better because it felt, well, it's definitely a conversation starter, right? It created controversy. It was so good that the judges have to disqualify the coffee.
Yes.
For suspected infusion, but it sort of helped, and that all happened before Melbourne. So I think going into Melbourne, everybody was like thinking, even the baristas, oh, we should do something with compound chilling. And then here you are, you know, number 3, you're doing the polar opposite, right? You're heating things up rather than chilling things up.
Yeah, but I guess because it's actually a very different concept. While extract chilling was more on the extraction itself, but I was focusing more on the post-extraction. And to be on, because I was doing this already for my nationals.
Right.
Then after that, during that period, like when the Shasha incident happened, I think Angus also competed in barista, came in third as well. And I saw his post. He was actually getting people to, you know, inhale the humidifier into the humidifier.
Brewers,
no, he did barista.
Barista?
Yeah, he was like.
Yeah, no, I saw the performance. I just can't remember if he was.
Yeah. So like before you take a sip for espresso, I think.
Yeah.
You
inhale into the.
Yeah, but you can't do that for brewers, right?
Yeah, you get
against the But for barista, you know, you get a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
So I thought they're like, wow, okay, so someone is actually doing something really similar, but like I can't do that. So how can I actually overcome that problem?
Right.
So like there were things that I thought about. How about I, you know, like lift up the lid for my kettle, start boiling water. That will also change, but it's really small. Or like how about I put an induction stove with a pot of hot water? You know, like everything. I was just thinking everything out of the box, trying to think how can I actually change the environment? Because I think ultimately, yes, extraction is important, but it is the sensory experience that what they're gonna assess on. So
And your thing, I feel like, was the most commercially applicable. You know, everybody has access to a ceramic cup.
Yes.
Everybody has access to
hot water.
You literally just put it on top. And then it's a pretty common practice, right? Like to, maybe not specifically hot water into a ceramic cup, but to just put a lid on your decanter just to trap the aroma or keep it warm or whatever. And especially Melbourne being quite cold, it sort of helps condensates the vapor as well, right? So it in a way it's kind of like distilling as well. So I guess similar way of thinking to the compound chilling, just different ways of getting there.
Yes.
I mean, not exactly the same, but the purpose is to trap things.
Correct.
Very interesting. And then I was also watching your performance, and then I realized you did 2 different temperatures, right? But very big difference in temperature.
Yes.
Normally people do like 95 and 90. You did like 95 and 70?
Yes, something like that. Yeah, I can't recall. Because like my first round and my last round, the recipe was different.
How did that come about?
Okay, this one actually I've been trying very often in the shop during operation as well. So like how I usually brew my coffee, is it okay if I can grab a dripper?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Go
but does that interrupt? No. Okay. Do you have like a V60 or anything like a dripper I can show?
Sure.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Any dripper is fine. Thank you. So like after brewing, say for example, if this is the server, after you finish your 1:15, I don't usually let it drain through. I prepare several cups on the side and I do the cut over here, like cut like every few seconds. So that actually helps me to assess like how the coffee would
changes.
Yes. And by playing with different temperatures, it actually kind of like change, especially when it comes to the last few, maybe like a 1:11, 1:15 kind of ratio with that part, the last 20 to 30% of water. By lowering the temperature, actually you kind of like tone down like the harshness of coffee. So, which is why, and because Serra Azul is such a hard coffee to deal with, I'm not sure about other people, but when it comes to funky coffee or natural anaerobic processed coffee, it's actually easy but not so easy. Yeah, to take care of like when it comes to extracting the coffee itself. So by playing with the temperature, that helps a lot.
Especially towards the end of the extraction.
Yeah, because it's very easy for the coffee to turn dry, astringent, or sometimes even salty. So with that change in temperature, kind of like tone down all the potential negative aspect of coffee. And knowing that they are going to drink your coffee for 45 minutes. And well, I mean, it's my 4th time competing. So I know that actually it's not just me that feel nervous, the judges feel as nervous as you, or probably a lot more than you. More. So
especially first round judges.
Yeah. So I know that like I really have to make sure that the coffee is like really easy to drink. And that's why besides body, the next thing that I always look out for is flavor clarity. You want it to make it very easy for the judges to assess the coffee itself. So yeah.
And then obviously you play around with the temperature difference, and different coffee would require different temperature. Yeah.
So I always encourage everyone to have like different base recipe. So like my base recipe for natural anaerobic process is always on a lower temp, like about 88, 85. And then wash is like 92 to like sometimes 96. So yeah, like with those base recipes, then I'll adjust as accordingly.
And then have you tried doing a similar thing but different minerality and hardness on the water? So say you start with harder water and then you end with same temperature but softer water. Have you done that?
Yes, I've tried. And I got like so confused. So
which kettle did I hit?
so like, okay, I guess it depends on like what is the objective for that session. If it's for competition, I would say don't do it unless you think that you are really a good water expert or you have been doing for like a long period of time. Otherwise, I think when it comes to talking about competition, I like to reduce the amount of variables that you have to deal with, because you are going to come to a lot of unforeseen circumstances and you don't want to be stressed out like, oh, which grinder am I going to use? I'm going to use a Comandante or EK43 that day, or what am I going to use, like a soft water, a hard water, temperature, With more variables that you add onto your plate, right, you actually tend to feel a lot more nervous and things that you have to deal with. So, and especially you are brewing in an environment whereby like you're not so sure what's going to happen next. So yeah, but on normal, like during the, like for fun, yes, we tried. Yeah, and well,
how does that differ from the temperature change?
Well, talking about this, actually, I think one interesting thing that I can share is I like to do fine grind, like really fine grind and fast brew. So say, for example, if you're talking about EK, I can use like maybe grind size 4 and the brew time is maybe 1 minute 30 seconds. So like the whole concept is to increase the surface area to get more coffee oil, to make your coffee like, to have a better body and texture. But it doesn't work in Melbourne because of the humidity. When you were to do that kind of grind size, it actually creates a lot more fines, and a lot more fines than usual. And what happens is your coffee starts to get really astringent and bitter. Yeah, in a dry environment, your coffee actually becomes more brittle. Yeah, and then when it's more brittle, it's easier to break them into fines. So in fact, instead of, for comparison, in national, I was using Comandante among like 22 clicks with like 60 to 70 ppm with aqua coat. In Worlds, I was doing 36 clicks with 160 ppm.
Yeah, I was listening to your thing. 160 ppm.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit.
Yeah, so how it works, basically, what I wanted to do is to reduce the amount of fines that I have to deal with by going course. And I just like sieve away all the silver skin. And to compensate the lag in body, because the extraction is really fast. So I actually increased my ppm. So I was trying in the Airbnb, like, I started from like 100, 120, all the way up to 300.
And it's all with aqua code?
Yes.
Oh, you tried
aqua code. So I just stick to aqua code.
Hey, you guys, aqua code. You know where to get them from.
So insert the link at the bottom. So yeah, that's how like we kind of like overcome, because but I would say this definitely doesn't work with all coffees, because Serra Azul, it's a very heavily processed kind of funky coffee, particularly because it's Napoleon. So it works. And it also depends on the roasting. It works only if your solubility is really high.
Right.
Yeah, which is why when the water goes through, you can still get flavors out. Yeah. If it's a coffee that has very low solubility, whereby the water, it's not gonna work. So yeah, that's how it all came about.
Very interesting. And then you obviously train with Emmy Fukahori, very lovely friend of ours. How did that experience for you? How did you approach her? Emmy is very approachable, for those who don't know her, but she's very approachable, but she's also very direct. So
yes,
if she doesn't want to work with you, she would pretty much tell you straight away, right? So how did that first start?
Well, it started off with like when I first met her in Guangzhou before COVID. So we were in a cafe space. So she's preparing for her workshop tomorrow. So she was there checking out the venue. Yeah. And then I was with one of my friends in China. She was actually preparing for her Brewers Cup competition the day after as well. So it was like, like a trade show. Everything's happening together. And when she saw, she actually approached us like, oh, hi. And then of course we know her. She's the world champion and everything. And she was actually doing her compulsory training, my friend. And then she actually came to her and said that, oh, actually, why not? You can try this like things like that. I was just like, wow, she just give off like, like free advice just like that. Yeah. I'm surprised, because like usually it will be considered as coaching, and you have to pay for coaching, things like that. But both Matthew and Amy were very, very open to sharing, and they were talking about roasting and everything. Matthew starts to draw the roast curve on the whiteboard and everything, and then Amy was just like, oh, you can try these, actually this is what I did during my roast, and all. I was like, oh, she's pretty different from quite a few people that I've met. Yeah. And I thought that like for someone who is so willing to share, I want to work with someone like that. Yeah. So, and then COVID happened. So the first national was in 2022 this year. And then I went to her and she was like, okay, but you're not going to use my coffee, right? I say, yeah. Right, because we roast our own coffee. Yeah. And then she was like, okay, but like let's do a Zoom interview. She wants to know, why do I want to compete? Yeah. What is my drive, things like that. So through that like 30 to 40 minutes Zoom session, she was like, okay, let's do this. I'm happy to do it together.
Coach interview is actually quite daunting, I think, because I've done it too. I think a lot of people think, I mean, I'm the interviewee, I'm not the one giving the interview, right? A lot of people think that if you just have money, you can just hire Tetsu, you can hire Amy, you can hire Hide, you can just hire world champions. But it doesn't work like that, guys. Really, these champions choose to work with you. It's not like, because everybody approached them. Yeah. They literally they can cherry pick. Yes. So I've done my interview with Hide as well. So Hide has been helping me for both of my WBC. My first WBC, both Hide Nori and Dale were helping me, mainly with concept, not so much with tasting. Because the timeline didn't really fit. But yeah, Hide had these multiple interviews with me asking me why I want to compete and all that sort of stuff. And only then they were like, okay, let's work together. I'm guessing with Emmy, it would be something like that.
Yeah, so like why do you want to compete? Like, what's the drive? What are you going to do if you win? Like, what's the next for you? Why is it so important for you to participate in a competition? Things like that kind of stuff. I was just like, whoa, I feel like I haven't been getting interviewed for quite some time, because I do the HR in home ground. So I am always the one doing the interview. So yeah, but it was a nice session. Yeah, it was also a good way for me to find out if Amy would be a suitable person to work together. And because she's so far away, like she's in Zurich, I'm in Singapore, and then how are we going to work this out? particularly if you're dealing with something like coffee, which is like so you need to experience it yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then with that, we actually kickstart and we flew to Zurich. I think was like 3 months before the national. That was.
Also, you flew to Zurich 3
Yeah,
months before
yeah.
nationals. Yeah.
And then like that's how we start to like put everything together, trying coffees and like so she's definitely not the kind that whereby you ask her to feed you. She's not the spoon feed type. You better, if you want to go to Amy, you make sure that like you have got everything ready. Like she's not the spoon feed type.
Yeah.
And I don't think if you want to spoon feed you shouldn't be going to a coach.
I
You
think
should be going to a trainer.
Most coaches are mainly there to give you feedback and bounce off ideas, right? Like you have to do your homework.
Yes.
If you don't do your homework, they're not gonna do anything for you, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah, so that was how it was like. But what I really like about Amy is like she is very aware of how you feel at that point of time, whether is it when she's next to me or when we are at a competition and all. She knows what to say to motivate you and drive you, and I think it is a pretty amazing feeling. Really, it is like. How can she know you so well? Like we barely, like spend time together back then, kind of.
Yeah.
But of course now we know each other very well. We've been through all the, So yeah, so it's really a very memorable experience for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
She's, I met her the first time in Belo Horizonte when she won. Because back then I was still working for Common Grounds. Everybody won. Everybody who competed from our team won. So we won the latte art, we won the brewers, we won the cup tasters, and I didn't win the barista. So I was the only one who didn't win that year. But because everybody else won and everybody else was competing in Brazil, they needed somebody to wash the dishes, right? So I got to go, and then I met initially Matthew. Back then I was already talking to Matthew because I was asking him stuff about the milk that he did. The freeze distilled but cooked, right? He was cooking the milk. So I was just sending him messages on Instagram, and he was very helpful. He didn't charge me anything. He was just answering me questions. So when I was there, I said hi to him and obviously introduced me to
Amy.
And back then we already know Tetsu because Tetsu came in 2017 to help one of us prepare for the Brewers Championship. So mutual friends and people were very nice. So yeah, it was a very nice experience, and I still remember because obviously she was using a Brazilian coffee, right? And back then, if you tell people that you're using a Brazilian coffee for brewers, they were like, "You're crazy." And that sort of was the sentiment throughout the first half of the week until they announced the final.
Yeah.
When Amy was announced into the final, everybody was like, "What is this coffee?" And then it was crazy. And then from there, it just like Lorena and the Terra sort of just
like
soared. And crazy. It's funny because this podcast is called Agent of Change, right? And I always say that coffee is an agent of change because it has this power to transform things. Exactly like that, it changed a lot of our lives. It changed. Like if you're a coffee farmer, maybe not so much the Terra because they're a really big farm, but someone ended up using your coffee and then they won the worlds with it. Your life's gonna change.
Yes.
It's super crazy, like maybe from selling your coffee at $3 a pound, it can become thousands of dollars.
Yes.
Like a lot of the Panamanian farmers through hard work and everything.
Yes, of course.
Their life changed because of coffee. And I think I mentioned to you earlier before we shoot this. Is there any sort of experience that you had where coffee react or act as an agent of change in your life or in your business or things like that?
Well, I think there were several occasions. But I guess what for me I really like for coffee was like, how should I put this? I mean, like everyone always likes to say that, like, coffee connects people. Like, like when you come to shows, you get to meet different people. Like the example that you had just now in Brazil and all. But for me, it was like getting to know people from like coming from different
backgrounds.
Yeah. Like, especially I really like talking to home brewers. Yeah, for me, that's like one of the things that I enjoy most of the time, making coffee for them. And their face just like, you know, shine and feel so happy when they drink the coffee. So that is actually what motivates me. But I also like one thing about coffee, it's what we learn today, it might be wrong tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what I love, which is why I can you do this as my career.
I was just gonna say, when you brought our home brewer, a lot of the home brewers that I talked to, they give us coffee professionals run for our money. You know, a lot of the times they know more about a certain technique. Like say, if you're a barista, you know, they do the WDT way before Anthony Douglas did, right? Like they've been talking about WDT since forum days, which is like 2016.
Yes.
And then whatever you call it, spraying water into the beans.
Oh yeah, to remove the static.
Yeah, to remove the static, and you don't really see professional baristas do it on the stage, right? So talking to home brewers are really humbling a lot of the times. You know, we just have the trophies to sort of, you know, give us a little bit of credibility and save our asses, but like, you know, like a lot of the times, you know, like
they really inspire you. Like they could go like, oh, who in this year in the competition, he or she used this coffee, they did this. Like, have you tried this new thing that like this Taiwan company or China company, this grinder that's like what does double grinding? I was just like, where are you getting all this information from? I was like, I feel so ashamed sometimes. Like, why am I not up to date? Like, I feel like I need to work harder. But yeah.
There was this one time I went to China. I can't pronounce the name of the town, but it was very close to Nanjing. I think it's called Suzhou.
Suzhou,
Yes, there. the then barista champion Simon. So he invited me there. He was in Melbourne too.
Oh yes.
So you know, China is always 1 year ahead of everybody.
Yes.
So he won in 2019, but he didn't go to Boston. He was supposed to go to Melbourne. Then obviously COVID and everything. But this was pre-COVID. Anyway, I went there, and then one of his, I don't know if it was his team members or somebody that is close to him. He pulled out this book, and in this book is like the translation of all the top 6 baristas and top 6 brewers from 2019.
Okay.
Of our speech, and he had all the coffee information of whatever we use. So he had mine, he had Cole's, everybody, and then the diagram of our tools. You know, barista have this little tools and the placements and the designs of that. Like it's that level of commitment that they put into studying the game, and I think that's also because they also understand what we know today is not going to be it's not 100% going to be correct tomorrow. You know, things always change. Right?
Yeah. Well, talking about this, I know one person who has all this information too in his iPhone. Like he's super intense. Like, you know, he like how he watch routine. We were just talking about it like a few days ago with Kenneth. Like how he watch routine. He will be watching a routine on the YouTube video. And then like he has his phone, like when a person press on the shot, he will start his timer and then he will stop. You know, like he really pays attention to like everything and trying to see, because sometimes like what you see, like, you know, like on the screen is kind of a little bit different of actually what's going on there. So like he really zoom into all the details, like who used what, Yeah.
But I think it's just part of I guess being a competition, or if you're immersing yourself in competition, is to study your game. Right?
Yes,
I think
of course.
A lot of athletes do that.
Yeah,
NBA players, football athletes, UFC fighters. You watch either your own competition or other people's to study. And you study the game.
Yeah, it's like you kind of like try to gather as much experience that people have like really put out there for you.
Yeah.
And then like, well, like a lot of people ask like, how do you choose coffee? Why do you choose Serazu? That's like one of the most like asked questions. That's just like, well, choose based on score sheet. No, honestly, if you want to play the game, you play by the rules.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's that's what I because we went to Milan with Indonesian coffee, right? It was a very big risk. I wouldn't say it didn't pay off, but it didn't pay off in terms of ranking. It paid off in a lot of different ways, but in terms of ranking, it didn't pay off. But a lot of going into Milan, that's what a lot of people were asking me. You know, like this coffee is not really, when you put it against a score,
it doesn't.
A score sheet, especially on the espresso segment, it didn't really
stand out.
Yeah, it was very risky. We knew it was going to be very hard for it to score really well in that particular score sheet. Doesn't mean that coffee is not great.
Yeah.
It just means that for whatever the rules and the score sheet was asking for, it's not meant for that.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, it still did well enough to
I think
it
really did. Like, well, at least everyone know that Indonesian coffee can be very, very different. So I guess sometimes going to competition is like, well, like what Hide would ask you, like, why do you want to compete?
Yeah.
I think it really depends on what do you want to achieve through the competition.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
When I was given a choice of like different coffees, I actually have a Best of Panama. It's an Esmeralda Wash Geisha. I really, really love that coffee, but it just doesn't fit the score sheet. Homing was like, no, this is not gonna work.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what do you want to do. And
that's true. What's your goal? I think like and that's why I ended up using the Indo coffee 100% as well, because Hide made me wrote an 11 pages essay.
Wow. Okay.
On why I wanted to compete. It's crazy because and this was like 2 weeks before.
Can I read the essay?
Sure. And this was like 2 weeks before, I think 2 or 3 weeks before Milan, because we were going back and forth with the call, and 2 weeks before Milan he was like, I still don't get your why. Like, I know you want to use Indonesian coffee, and I know you don't want to blend it with anything, and I know you don't want to blend it with anything and still say that it's 100% Indonesian coffee.
Yes,
because
I know.
The option is there, you know, like
yes,
if you don't want to be truthful, you can easily do that, right? But I really wanted to showcase, right? So the 11 pages, and then I realized I not that I didn't want to win, but the only way I wanted to win is if I can use this coffee. And I think back then I had the luxury of having Milan as my second WBC. And was already using my own company's money, so I didn't have pressure on, like, Boston. I was working for Common Grounds, right? And everything was sponsored by Common Grounds, and obviously, you know, like expectations from the bosses. It was our first WBC as well, so we really wanted to just do well, fit the score sheet, you know, like, so the goal was back then. I don't know if you met Yanto, the Common Grounds, one of the Common Grounds owner, the head of SCI Indonesia.
Okay.
It was like, it's your first Worlds. Just do the best that you can, score as high as you can on the score sheet. So our why back then was very different. Our why was actually just to be the first Indonesian team that made it to the finals, which we did because we had a wash geisha. In the barista comps, it's very safe. You can score really high.
Okay.
It's probably hard to win with a wash geisha these days anyway.
Yeah.
You know, like back then it was still very possible, but we know you're not gonna get a 2 out of 6 if you pull this shot well.
No,
you know, your window is so big that you're gonna be very safe. So I think our why was quite different, and I guess with going back to Cafe Grana, I think your why was probably also to...
Well, because for me was like, honestly, choosing Cafe Grana was more of like an emotional reason. Of course, I know I need a backup, so which is why it explains there was like Camo 90 plus, I have like BOP and all. But for me,
you already had that relationship with the Herrera family, right?
Because during my 2019 competition, when you know, like Homeground is like, I mean, we are still a very small company, but like, why would a big producer bother to sell me just like 500 grams or 1 kg of this like GXO, Sarah Azu GXO, right? They are not going to get anything out of it. It's just going to be like minimum profit, but they're still willing to do it. So, and I mean, I like everyone has their own coffee idols. So mine was like Lex Menaker and like Charles Babinski, Andrew Allen.
That shows our age.
So yeah, like they all use Cafe Grana too.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, all these people, they always came in second. You know, so like for me, like what you mentioned earlier on, it's like, you know, through competition, actually it is a way for me to like repay their kindness to me, like to put it out there. People's like, hey, Sarah Azu, Cafe Granha has really good coffee, and this is just one of it. Which is why I chose to use that coffee. For me, was really because of that reason. Yeah, and I believe working with a coffee like through so many different harvests, you really know them like inside out. Yeah, it was also easy for me to work with, which is why. So yeah.
So in all of your competitions, you've competed 3 times or 4 times?
4 times.
You always use Cafe
So
Granha?
the first time when I was still trying was a Hambella.
Right.
And then second year when I got disqualified.
Just a straight up Hambella.
Yeah. Just straight up Hambella. Wash Hambella.
Yeah.
And then second year was a Santa Teresa from Costa Rica. It was a white honey, I think a white honey SL28. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then after that, the third year onwards, which is the year that I won, was Serra Azul. And then ever since then, whether it's in nationals or world, it was always Serra Azul. Like I just couldn't put myself to choose another coffee, even though I really have very good options out there that I know I easily could have scored better. But I feel that I should be able to do it, or rather I want to do it with my knowledge and skill level to push it further. So
I think like choosing coffee is also a lot same, right? A lot of people ask me how I choose my coffee, but I think for a lot of competitors, choosing coffee is also about the relationship that we have with that farmer. Good friends. I'm good friends with Jameson. I'm sure you're good friends with a lot of different processors as well. With Tuang Coffee, the coffee that I ended up using for Milan, we're also good friends and have that relationship for multiple years. So a lot of the times, it's like choosing a car. Right? You're going on a race. You're going on a race. Everybody's gonna have a fast car.
Yeah.
Some cars are faster, but faster doesn't always mean it's easier to drive.
Yeah.
Some cars are a little bit slower.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier to drive, meaning you can make up time in corners and stuff like that.
Right.
So I think choosing coffees, at least that's how I think about it, because just buying the most expensive coffees it's not gonna guarantee you a top 6 or a win. Just if you look at the list during my year in Milan, I don't know if they did that for your year, but they actually list down the name of the coffee farmers on all of the competitors.
Yeah, I think only from Milan onwards.
So they did that for Melbourne as well.
Yeah.
Yes, and Milan was the first time
they did
that. And then you see, like some of these really big name brands, they're not as high up as coffees. They are, a lot cheaper than.
Yes.
So yeah, it goes to show that you still have to put in the hours, you still have to put in the work, and just having the most expensive coffee doesn't mean that
you will make it. Yeah. So well, I mean, for me, in 2019 in Boston, I mean, because we're in Singapore, we don't really get to travel. That was actually my first time meeting Rigoberto. He is the owner for Cafe Granha.
Yes.
So he doesn't speak English at all.
Yeah.
So he came with his CEO. It was very memorable for me because he was just holding my hand. He was speaking in Spanish. Then I just I don't understand a thing, but okay, I think I feel your passion. Yeah, and then someone is just translating in a very monotone, but he's speaking with a lot of passion. I was just okay, I get it. Yes, thank you. But I mean, that was one of the moments that makes me really want to use their coffee. I really want to but sadly I didn't make it to champion. But oh well. But still, I'm still very happy with whatever I've achieved so far, because I think this time around, why I wanted to compete, the same reason that I shared with Amy was because F&B or being a barista can be very mundane sometimes, honestly speaking. If you are a barista behind a bar for a long period of time doing the same thing, and sometimes you have to deal with not so nice customers, right? Kind of ruin your day. There's so many things going on, but you're just pulling short and all. But what are the ways that actually can motivate people to want to continue to be in this industry? And I think competition is one way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's always through competition that push you, and it reminds me of why did I want to be a brewer at the initial stage of my career? What actually sparked my interest that this is something that I want to do for the rest of my life. And competition was a platform like this for me. And I wanted to know, with whatever that I have put in so far, how far can I go? So yeah, that was the reason why.
Yeah, I feel it's funny because a lot of past competitors who've done really well in their competition, world level, and have had their life change because of that. claim that competition doesn't do anything for the industry, and it always not that it bothers me, but in my experience, it's the complete opposite of that. You know, since we've done well in the world, not just my life has changed, but a lot of other people's life around me changed. You know, the coffee farmers, the coffee processors that we work with. Catur Coffee Company was born because I did well in 2019. You know, that 15 minutes times 3 now is impacting. Now we have like 19 people in the company. Before Boston, I had 0. Like, you know, I didn't have a company, right? And then we work with, now we're at 14 different regions in Indonesia doing Catur collection. And that all started because of competition, you know? Like, so if you say that competition doesn't have an effect in the industry, I would, you know, like I would argue differently. But then again, it's not always the case for everybody. So I guess, but then it is true that especially after Jakarta Coffee Week yesterday or the last weekend, I'm sure you met a lot of younger baristas who really looked up to this, you know, world level champions, because then they either want to be like them or they feel like if they're on that level, their life is going to change. And that's very inspiring, because I don't know how you feel, but I was there once too, you know, like I remember taking picture with Matt Berger. I remember watching.
I did that too.
You know, like Matt came to my cafe in Melbourne. I was, you know,
oh my God, he's here.
And I remember watching Matthew and asking him questions. I remember watching Lex Wenneker, you know, and then to have that as a career path, and to know that it's possible to be on that level, I think was very important for me personally on my coffee career journey. You know?
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I'm really glad that there's this competition and it's back again after COVID, because like we have I'm not sure about Jakarta or Indonesia, but we have lost so many talents in F&B industry. It has become so tough that like people are leaving for other industry because they see no career prospect. They are doing the same thing every day, and they have to deal with so many nasty, not so many, like nasty customers sometimes, all challenging customers. And people start to give up because they see no light, and it is really sad. And I'm saying that this is actually a real job. I'm so often, within the last 8 years, people are like, is this your real job? I said, what do you mean? It's my real job, and I'm proud of it. Like, what's wrong with it? And you'll be surprised, like, to be a true good F&B professional, you need both EQ and IQ. It's not as easy as you think it is.
It's very hard.
So, and I'll say for people who really wants to, you know, have the thoughts of giving up, maybe try competition. It might spark your love for coffee again. So really.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you either,
as cliche as it might sound, but
you either love it and it's for you, or you figure out that it's not for you and you go do other things. But then at least you know, and then as you say, it sparks different joy in your life.
And I think because for competition, one of the most amazing feeling you will get is, because you know you're not going to do this alone for sure. It's always a team that like someone is doing something, and then we slowly piece everything together. The 15 minutes you have, the 10 minutes that I have, it's not just one person's effort, right? And when you achieve a certain result, or like a good result, or even if you don't, it's just an amazing feeling. It's like, oh my God, we did this together. So I enjoy that as well.
That's awesome. So on that note, we might round this up, close this up.
Okay.
Any message to baristas out there, especially the Indonesian baristas, on anything really? I mean, we touch on competitions and being making coffee as your career, but any other messages that you wanna?
Well, a lot of people like to ask me like, how do you make a good cup of coffee? Honestly, there's just only one piece of advice. Just make sure, like, wait, honestly, it's the same thing, like, just make sure that you practice on your foundation. That's all I have to say, honestly, because everyone likes to do, like, the fancy stuff, you like to go your advanced theory, but you can't even bother to, like, practice how to pour your water. So to me, that's always, like, just get your basic right, everything will fall into place,
Nice. As our mutual friend said, the best coffee is the coffee that you like.
Well, Amy, you see this?
You go to Mame, it's right there. All right, thank you, Ali. Thank you for your time. We'll see you on the next episode. Oh, before we go.
Oh, yes.
Socials. If people want to get homegrown coffee or they want to learn more about the brands, where should they go?
Alright, you can actually follow us on like homegrown.coffee. That's actually our IG where we post all the updates that we have. So yeah, I'll like here. I'm not sure where you're gonna put it.
Alright, thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope it was